Welcome, maggots. I have a trio of tales for you today. First up will be a story about a painting with some supernatural events happening around it. After that, a potentially dangerous garden ornament. And finally, we'll talk about the dangers of texts from strangers. Welcome to the Frail Blaze. Our first story today is called Cabin. The sun has set. The sky rests in a dark shade of blue as the stars twinkle. A small cabin in the woods falls silent as the crickets chirp to life. A girl sits in the dark on a small wooden stool. A paintbrush in her hand flows across the canvas set on her easel. Within the walls of the cabin, the fireplace crackles, casting a dim glow along the log walls. The girl quietly hums to herself in a slow yet sad song. A soft knock on the window is the only sound that draws her attention away from her canvas. She looks up, staring at the night sky through the window. The soft crackling of the fireplace seems to cease as the paintbrush lifts off the canvas. She lets out a soft, shaky breath, leaning off the stool to look around outside the window. A sigh leaves her lips, her eyes locking on something only she could see outside. With wide eyes, her paintbrush quickly returns to the canvas, the strokes of her brush becoming more harsh, thrashing across the canvas as the knocking resumes. The louder the knocking gets, the faster and harder the paintbrush glides. The wind outside swirls loudly as the knocking becomes fervent. The fire crackles louder, her head spinning as she lets out a high-pitched scream. Her paintbrush sinks to the ground as the fire grows wild, climbing high in the chimney, matching the pitch of her scream. The harsh knocking comes to a sudden halt as the windows shatter, glass exploding everywhere, and then silence falls. The screaming ends, crickets scattering, the fire returning to its normal height and resuming its peaceful crackle. Birds flood the night sky, eager to escape from these woods. The only other sound to be heard are the trees gently rustling outside. The silence is deafening. Trying to focus back on the girl, but... oh, where is the girl? Her paintbrush slowly rolls across the floor, falling into a crack between the logs, but where has she gone? Flashlights flood the dark, empty cabin, scanning the area of where the missing girl was last reportedly seen. Loud footsteps fill the air as an officer gazes at the canvas resting on an easel in the middle of the room, his flashlight shining on a painting. He quickly waves more officers over, pointing at the canvas. Their eyes lock on the painting of that very same cabin, painted from an outside view. But that's not what draws their attention. What is this long, black figure painted standing outside the window? Where's its face? And why is the head able to tilt at a 90-degree angle? Why is it staring into the window? And what are the glowing white eyes that have seemingly appeared and are becoming larger and larger the more they stare at the painting? Suddenly, a harsh knocking on the door makes the room jump. The officers, they look at the painting, and then they look at one another. Their faces a ghostly white as they creep towards the door. Guns drawn. Where has the girl gone? Interesting. What do you think that creature was? And how do you like the cops' chances? And let's move on to story 2. This one is called, I found a cute gnome buried in my garden, but it's freaking me out. Day 1. I've never been one to believe in the supernatural or even indulge in horror stories, but what I'm experiencing is making me question everything. It started with a garden gnome that I found buried in the backyard of my new house when I moved into it. It's just a regular ceramic gnome, or so I thought. I placed it near the roses, thinking it'd add a quirky touch to the garden. Day 3. Something weird is happening. I could swear the gnome wasn't in the same position as where I left it. I thought maybe an animal moved it, but how could any animal move something so heavy? It's probably just me being forgetful. Day 7. I'm not being forgetful. The gnome is moving, I'm sure of it now. Every morning when I wake up, it's in a different spot. It's always a subtle change, but it's enough to notice. I tried to brush it off, telling myself there's a logical explanation. Maybe someone is trying to play a prank on me, perhaps? Day 10. No one's playing a prank. They're to the point. I decided to test my theory and marked the gnome's position with a piece of chalk. The next morning, it had moved, well beyond the chalk line. I'm starting to feel uneasy. The look on the gnome's face also seems different somehow, almost menacing. Day 14. I can't sleep. Every little sound at night makes me jump. I feel like the gnome is watching me, even though I know that sounds crazy. It's just a ceramic figure, right? But why does it feel like its eyes are always following me around? Day 17. I tried to get rid of it. I threw it in the trash, but the next morning there it was back in the garden, covered in dirt as if it had dug itself out somehow. I'm genuinely scared now. This can't be normal. I don't know what to do. It's just a gnome, but why do I feel like it's something much more sinister? This is the part where people always ignore that feeling, although they might be a week late on this one. Day 20. Things are getting worse. Last night I heard noises outside my window, like the scraping of ceramic on concrete. I was too frightened to look. When I mustered the courage to check in the morning, the gnome was right there, outside of my bedroom window, staring in. That would be a sight. Day 23. I can't keep this to myself anymore. I tried to tell a friend about what's happening, but they laughed it off. They don't understand. I feel like I'm trapped in some sort of nightmare. The gnome is not just some type of garden decoration. There's something evil about it. I don't know how I know. I can just feel it. Day 25. Last night was the worst. I heard the scraping again, but this time it was louder, closer. I dared to peek through the blinds, and I wish that I hadn't. The gnome was there, but it wasn't still. I saw it move. Its tiny ceramic feet shuffling towards my door. I locked everything and pushed a dresser against my bedroom door. Day 27. Well, they've made it 2 more days. I'm writing this because I don't know what will happen to me. The gnome is outside my door. I can hear it scraping against the wood. I don't understand how this is possible. It's just a garden gnome, but it's terrorizing me. I'm so scared. I don't know what it wants, but I can feel its malice. If you're reading this, please believe me. I do. It's not just a story. Something is very wrong with that gnome. I don't know if I'll make it through the night. But I had to warn others. Be careful of the things you find in your garden. They might not be as innocent as they seem. Obviously, that's the last entry. Garden gnome. Well, that's almost a month of being slowly terrorized by something supposedly made of ceramic. Perhaps they should have tried attacking it through the day, but what do you think? Trying to apply our own rules to things we don't understand might often result in stories that never got to be written. Speaking of stories, as ungrateful as you maggots are, I will give you your third one now. This one is called Paranoia. After a long day, I could use some rest, and walking home would also take a lot of time from my already short personal hours. The meeting sucked up a lot of my time, and I ended up missing the last bus by a good deal of minutes. I ruefully decided to walk. The path was empty as far as I could see, except for a group of homeless people huddled around a dumpster fire. It was 1 a.m, and nobody wanted to be out there on the cold street. I sucked in the cold air and continued down the road, a little cautious as I passed by the group. I was taught by my father to always watch my back, and I usually came home late, so I'd gotten adept at it. All sorts of situations passed through my head, but all for naught. The group seemed harmless, and half of them were asleep. I walked past stores that I'd never noticed when I rode the bus. It was like discovering the place all over again. Most of the buildings were closely packed because of the rising property prices. The long lane of stores were a brief respite from the surrounding darkness. The neon lights shaded the roads in a cacophony of colors. The only thing that remained unchanged was the lack of people. The stores were locked, except for a convenience store that was 24 hours. Might as well grab something to eat, I thought to myself. The door opened and announced my presence with a chime. At the counter I saw a teenager browsing through his phone. The guy gave me a glance before shifting his attention back to his phone. I picked up some of my favorite late-night snacks and paid the disinterested teen in cash. After a long walk in silence, I finally reached my doorstep. I had been living in this house for a year now, but due to the daily travel time, I've started thinking about moving somewhere closer to the office. I checked my pockets, and after finding my keys, I unlocked the door. Normally, I would shower, but today I just changed my clothes and went straight into my blankets. I swiped through my college friends' chat to keep up with them. As I grew drowsy, I received a notification. Unknown. Did you check the door lock? Followed by several smiley faces. My heart raced as all of my tiredness vanished. I picked up a steel flask and carefully made my way towards the door. I tried locking it only to find that it was already locked. I peered through the keyhole and found no one. I wouldn't have opened the door even if I'd seen someone. I'm definitely reporting this fucker tomorrow. I walked back to my room, picked up my phone in order to check the number. I saw that there was already something else there. It was from unknown. Did you check under the bed? Could someone be watching me? I could see from where I was, but I confirmed it by leaning down that there was absolutely no one under the bed. Before I could scream in frustration, I received yet another notification. Look who's behind you. And I heard a creak on the floor. I know I've said this before, but that was short and definitely not sweet. A little too realistic of a situation in some corners of this globe. I wonder how they got in. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comments beneath. I'm so glad that you could join me. And I do hope that you'll join me again in the future for more Frail Blaze tales. Oh, and subscribe already.